Well, a lot of y'all have been asking me about how I mix my fertilizer up to fertilize my beds. And I mentioned to y'all that anymore I use fish emulsion. And I've been doing this for several years now. And I mix anywhere from 1 to 2 tablespoons of fish emulsion to 1 gallon of water. And most of the time I use rainwater. I have several rain barrels that captures a lot of rainwater, but as it gets on into the end of July, August, sometimes if we ain't had much rain, I'll run out of rainwater, so I have to go back to using well water. But when I first start out fertilizing, it's usually about 2 tablespoons per gallon of water. And then if things are looking pretty good, I might just use 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. And you can see in this bed how good everything's looking. You can see how full it's gotten for sure. The 2 cabbages in here are just really thriving. You know that so far nothing, it's not gotten any kind of bugs. There's not a hole in any leaf. There's no worms or nothing. Now I planted a bunch of calendula in here within these 2 cabbage plants because I wanted to do a little test, because I've been reading up where calendula will help keep a lot of your disruptive bugs and the ones that eat your cabbage up. They want to lay eggs, and eventually, you know, the worms will get inside and start eating it up. So far my cabbages are looking really good. Now also in here with the cabbage, I've got a lot going on. I've got cucumbers in the back. They're just now starting to come up, and they'll eventually start climbing. The 2 tomato plants, those are cherry tomatoes. I've got all kinds of herbs in and out of here that like oregano, basil, especially several plants of thyme, and things that help deter a lot of pests in your garden. So you just have to read up on that, research it. But I also planted a ton of wildflower seeds in here, and that's why this has become so full, y'all. But mainly I done that to attract pollinators, is the reason I done that. Of course, none of them's blooming yet. My calendulas are blooming really beautiful, but I can tell you these cabbage plants, and I'll show you in a minute, that are among these calendula plants just look really good. But there's just a lot. I've got yarrow in here. I've just got all kinds of, like I said, herbs and some medicinal plants in here. And even in this bed, you can see the calendula, how beautiful it is over here. This thing is absolutely full of wildflowers and poppies and zinnias. You can see how full it's getting. Nothing's really blooming yet except these pretty little white wildflowers here. But I've got sage in there, calendula. I've got a what they call a toothache plant. Just all kinds of things just mingled in here. And on the other side over there, I made me a little built-in pond that I just took a small see-through tote that didn't have a lid on it that you get at the dollar store. Put it down there. Put some plants around it and just some different things to make a little pond that's got a little fountain in there. And I seen today that I've got a frog living in there now. So everything's really looking good. But I want to show you a couple different fertilizers that I do myself. Now the fish fertilizer, like I said, I've been using for several years, and to me it does wonderful on just about anything that you use it on. I use it on my squash, I use it on my beans, my tomatoes, my cabbage. I even put it on my fruit trees, just everything. And another thing I do start out with is worm castings. If you can get a hold of worm castings, you talk about making your soil so vibrant, so mature, and just so fertilized. You can't go wrong with worm castings. I can remember back when I was living with my grandma and grandpa. Now, my grandpa was not a fisherman. He didn't fish. Now, he loved to eat fried fish, but he didn't fish. He was always too busy working on the farm. But I can remember he had an old deep freeze out behind the barn, and he raised worms in there. And I thought, Grandpa, you don't even fish. Now, we fished, and other people would come and fish. They'd fish that big old creek, or they'd go to the pond and fish, or they'd get it and go to the river, which wasn't very far from the farm, and fish. But he used that as his fertilizer too on his garden. So he was a very smart man. But another fertilizer that I'll show you in a minute is my Comfrey. I make it, now that takes a couple of weeks for it to really make a Comfrey tea that's really good for your plants. I also have some stuff that I start in the house, and I'll show you that too. It is, I keep a big jar by my sink filled with water, and I put my banana peelings and my coffee grounds in there. And when it just sits there for a week or two, probably not more, it hardly ever sits there 2 weeks, but a good week or a little over. And I'll use it especially on my rose bushes as fertilizer. So there's so many things. And yes, the eggshells. I do the eggshells. A lot of times I'll break them up, grind them up, and give them back to the chickens because they need that calcium too. So I try not to be too stingy about that. They give me the eggs, so I want to help them back out and give them a little more calcium they need to make stronger eggs too. So there's all kinds of home remedies and home fertilizer that you can make up, and always just do what works best for you. And I am going to maybe try, I've been researching on kelp fertilizer, and if any of y'all have ever used it or know somebody does, let me know in the comments, because I do want to try that just to see how well it does. In the main garden right now, my okra has come up. My green peas are starting to really bloom. They got some beautiful pink blooms on them. And in amongst my green peas, I planted some tomatoes they'll be right there along that cow panel that I've got my peas climbing. I've got some green beans out there. I'm not going to plant a bunch of green beans this year, but enough for us to eat. I've got some melon, some cantaloupe. Of course, I got a bunch of onions planted out there, and we'll just see how everything goes. My potatoes, I planted a few in the back garden, and I will be pulling up some of the Brussels sprout plants and a few broccoli plants that have already given me vegetables, and I'll be replacing that part of the bed with green beans. Here among, you can see it's fixing to bloom, but I planted it among 4 cabbage plants too, and they are doing so good. I also read that planting comfrey among your vegetables does help your vegetables, and it does help keep a lot of the pests away. So I just been testing a lot of this stuff, and so far I've been really happy with it. The cabbages look good. Everything among this bed has really thrived. Over here I've got some Brussels sprout plants that are fixing to come up, and I may even put those leaves in here with the comfrey leaves. But this one is fixing to bloom, and it's still making more leaves. But you can still go down here because they're even making more leaves on the inside. And you can take these. I've got water. This is rainwater in this bucket. And I've got more comfrey in the back garden. But more or less what you're going to do is you're just going to make a comfrey tea. Just like if you were making tea to drink. That's what this is going to be. And you want it to steep for a couple of weeks. And let me tell you something. It will start stinking. If it's not stinking, it's not ready. And the more you got in there, the more it's going to stink. But I'm going to take these bottom leaves off and I'm putting them in my bucket. I'll put a lid on that bucket and I may put it in my greenhouse or just sit it out here by the greenhouse and just let it steep, let it do its thing. So that kind of gives you the idea of some of the things that I do to make my own fertilizer. So the plants that I've got around back, I'll be cutting them, the leaves off them too, and putting them in this bucket. Get as much in here as I can. And just let this one bloom and keep making leaves and see how much comfrey leaves we can get off of this one. But so far it's done really good. You can see how it's still making more leaves. It is about 5:30 in the afternoon and it's very cloudy out. I think we may be going to be getting some rain tomorrow afternoon, maybe into Wednesday, maybe Thursday, not sure. But it's really cloudy this afternoon. We usually have a really pretty sunset about, I don't know, the sky starts turning pink about 6, 7 o'clock. And even being in the middle of the woods, you can see it and how pretty it is. But even at this stage, you can see how full the beds are getting. And we've just barely even started, y'all. My awning back here, I've got several things that are starting to grow. I'm hoping that by August it'll just be full because I've got gourds and loofahs and scarlet runner beans. I've just got all kinds of different things that's going to run up that thing. I hope it all works out. The pond has got a little bit of moss mess on it from our last rain. It come down, I think, out of the holler, so it does have some. And you know, Danny said that some of that stuff maybe settling on the bottom of the pond may help to help seal it a little bit, because it is still losing a little bit of water. One of these days I'm going to have to get inside the greenhouse and clean it, because it's getting I've been in and out of it so much that you can tell somebody's been in there working. But everything's looking good. The flowers are looking pretty. And I just come out here about pretty much every day and just do a little bit every day. I don't try to overdo it. And I'm fixing to put in a shade garden on the other side of the greenhouse, and the backyard garden where all the fruit is looking really good. In fact, I've got some sweet potato plants that I'm fixing to plant back there, and I'm going to plant them in there under the high tunnel with all my fruit. I'm just going to stick it underneath the apple trees and the fig trees. I'm just going to let it be a ground cover underneath all that and see how it does. Now, I did grow sweet potatoes in there the first year that we lived here on this hill, and they done real good, so we'll see. But anyways, I just want to come to y'all and answer some questions about fertilize, how I do it, what I use, and I hope this gives y'all some good ideas. So we'll be back in a few days. Not sure what we're going to be doing, but we'll be doing something on this homestead as always. So God bless everybody. We'll see y'all in a couple of days. Y'all have a wonderful week, and we love y'all. Plant your garden. Plant you a victory garden.
Moon, I'm there soon. I'm leaving quite early tomorrow morning. Undercover, baby, is what you ask of me. Soon I'll be disguised. Shooting star, I'm without a safety net. Give me a ride. I'm going far beyond where the sun sets. Dear, I'm no longer scared. Girl brings me comfort. I'm filled with light. Tiptoe dance with me through the shadows.